In today's game, we're going to overview a strategy which will bring you a lot of joy. I've got another game as well after this, by the way, but it'll bring you a lot of joy if you're struggling on a front line, particularly like in Supreme Isthmus here, and you just don't know quite what to do to be really effective. And this is going to show something that's super effective and not just sort of like you acting like you're doing something, which I think a lot of people try and do with rocket bots. Just sort of dance them around. Look, I'm here, you know, I've built some units, let me just eco. So we do something which is actually, I suppose, putting pressure on the enemy in a real way. We've gotten boosted, fortunately, because we are in a high OS lobby and everyone knows about that. So I've been able to put out these blitzers quite early on to try and control this middle section. Over in the other team, they're being a little bit slower than us. We've got a vehicle over here, and directly opposite us is a bot, and we've got a bot over here as well. So it's a mirror matchup, as it were. Because the energy's looking okay, and I'm just in a hurry to get up this middle, I don't worry about an energy storage in this build. I sort of crack on with hustling. Predictably, of course, we are encountering wind issues. This is always going to happen. So as long as we make sure we get a couple of construction vehicles onto wind turbines, that will be enough to sort of alleviate a lot of the earlier wind issues. It's such a high wind map here as well. At this stage, I possibly would have got this guy into energy storage before going back to producing units. So we're being told there's about 1,000 metal to reclaim here, and as cool as that is, I'm going to get it. But I also got to think about laser towers as well. Unfortunately, one of my vehicles got sniped there by the enemy commander. See, they're putting down a laser tower pretty fast, so I do the same. I don't want them creeping forward LLTs any further. They've also brought up this very early construction bot, trying to get the range advantage in the static defences. And so usually that's fine, right? We can relax with hardly any forces, some LLTs, a construction bot, and start that menacing static defense line right away. So I've had 2 blitzers just die to light laser towers. I think all my blitzers have died to light laser towers, so... I just do them because quite often I don't want it to leak. That's the only issue and utility. In fact, I should have tried to bring them back and actually reclaim their metal. But there you go. I come forward here to take down these defences. I should have taken down this LLT as well, but there you go. I was particularly after the long range area defence because I can't outrange that easily, especially with limited forces. It's going to stop me too hard, so I can't allow that to get up. Very easy harassment. I've actually put a construction bot, a Janus, and 2 whistlers into the build order, so I make sure I have enough build power spending all our metal. We see the enemy come here trying to be aggressive like I was, but doesn't realise perhaps how many forces we have, and we're able to just ping off them with these missiles. Look at that. The commander didn't dance enough there to overcome those missiles, learning for the enemy comm, and we snipe him. And that's why, in the end, you need a line of bots or such. You can't rely on static defences alone. There's too many things we can do, even bringing up my commander and bombing them right. There's too many things we can do to overcome a static line. But now we see the traditional response, which is rocket bots. Usually as annoying as that is, doesn't even worry me because we outrange them. And the whole idea of this, as well as to 100% utilise the commander can very quickly repair up all these vehicles. Also, the commander self-repairs, which is always handy. Let's look at our teammate, say here's an area defense cannon, let's take it out quickly. Unfortunately, we're going to take a couple of casualties from it, as it's been repaired. Now, Harloff here, I don't notice it. It must just cloaked outside of my vision. Very unfortunate here. So quite a good sacrifice of the commander to do that. Now, because this is a very cheap build order, apart from the... No, overall it is very cheap to run with it. It's actually hard to spend all the metal. That's why I've got 3 construction turrets on it. It's very cheap, so I constantly have this supply of tanks coming up to the front line. My commander's alive, so I get the spoils of war. I'm going to have to give away some metal here. We're just reclaiming way too much metal. And this is what frontline should be about, is actually taking land and reclaiming metal. It's only us doing it so far, so we've had a couple of lucky breaks. So because of the panic here about the front line collapsing, we see this quick bot lab up, which is the natural counter to our forces. Sometimes it's good to encourage the enemy to just spam, because it's not actually that effective. If we can get a light laser tower up anyway. Even this force can take on the spam okay. It's certainly at a very dense level. So dense I can't even get an LLT up yet. Yeah, so I have to just build one at first a little bit further back and then actually sort of walk them forward in order to get it up. Then protect it with the units from the odd rocket bot. There's so much metal here, I don't know what to do. I'm like, should I repair? Should I reclaim? I sort of go with reclaiming because I figured we're going to be pushed back soon. But we're just not seeing it yet. The Whistlers, which are the primary force, because the Januses do get taken out, they're a priority unit, so the Whistlers can just pressure minute after minute after minute with the exceptional range and visibility they have. Now we've got that light laser tower up, it's taken down the spam very easily. The dancing maces here, they can't get away from the Janus shots. They can get away from my missile trucks, sure. The Janus shots still take them down. Very effective 1-2 combination. I got given this sniper, which is pretty random but cool. Would be handy if we're up against a static defense line at the 11-minute mark. So thank you for that, I think, Geo. Pretty much that's GG's from the front line here. Both is broken at the same time. Even the base here blows up. I'm not sure why. What's this, a commander from Red? Snuck past. What a nightmare. And getting bombed. Wow. Our team smelt a bit of weakness here. It's crazy. This combination also is pretty good against hounds. Especially staggered hounds when they're not at that critical mass of like 12 or so. Even if they are, they can still stand off them and hit, actually outrange hounds. So that's GG's. You'd have to chuck in a tower, wouldn't you, after that? And that's about a 13-minute game with our front winning.
Battle ended.
There you go. I actually got a couple of like, wow, that's OP roguelike. And not really, because I mean, I got a lot of my units blown up. I got my initial tanks just sniped by light laser towers. There wasn't sort of any magnificent micro, I don't think. I was just sort of lucky more than anything. But that was a reasonable sort of, I'd say it's the combination of units is why I'm getting 200% damage efficiency and sort of the most units killed is simply because the Janus and Whistler combo is so OP. As long as the commander's there supporting them, healing, building sentries, yeah, reclaiming, and honestly I could have done with a couple extra construction vehicles as well. The way that game went would be the only thing I'd do different is build an earlier energy storage and bring up a couple of these guys just to help support with all the duties. The commander just could not keep up, honestly. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys pick up how powerful this combo is. If you do give it a go and have a lot of success, let me know. You might even want to go one missile truck to one Janus, time to time, just to pick up the Janus numbers. So yeah, it's a very effective combination for doing what Frontline should, which is putting real pressure and real threat on the other team, rather than just sort of being this, you know, where we get Rocketeers up here and we try and do basically static defense sim against each other and take little bits of ground. We want to totally conquer the other players as quickly as possible, and I think that's what this force mix does. We're going to see what this force mix can do now in another game, but Glitters this time, and showing how the eco front positions played as well. Because this is such an economical build, the eco front does really well with this, even in high OS lobbies. So let's have a look at that. I was just back looking through my replays recently. A position I'm personally been struggling with here in the canyon, in the back part of it as well. And so I was ready for the challenge today. Now, I'm starting to build vehicles here through Armada is basically my solution to this very difficult problem we've got back here. And if you don't realise why this position's difficult, you probably aren't playing it too well or to its maximum potential. People will say, right, come out to front because that's the meta. But guess what? You haven't got the mexes to come out to front. Not really. So what you have to do is then you have to, I guess, save money. You go bots, you contribute a piddly force, you look like you're doing something, you don't actually do something. In this game, I'm going to actually do something in this lobby. Now, the lobby is high-ish. We've got Ironstorm, here. Quite a good player, played many games. I always wonder when rank 45s are sort of the same experience as me. They must just be better gamers, I guess. But whether it's a new profile or not, Ironstorm's a very solid player. I've played with Ironstorm many times before. On our side, we've got host EU01, very interesting name there. I've got Malem 86, who I remember, and we've got someone from Smile. Actually, a very difficult team. We've got Ice Willie from my fellow country of Australia. So that'll be interesting. I'll keep an eye on Ice Willie. It's sort of in the mirror matchup, or not quite the mirror, but it's cross from me in the eco front position. So what I've done straight out is, I wouldn't call this a masterclass, but as far as my play goes, this is one of the few replays I've actually looked at and gone, wow, I played really well this game. And since we're getting this excess of energy, I'm getting up 16 kilometers per hour, that's when I put down the energy storage, when we're just blasting through that energy, just so I can get any extra energy from the team as well. Oh, okay, so my masterclass didn't go too well because we've already got this leak come through and we're going to respond to it the best we can, but just a little bit slow. Managed to save that mix. One thing that the pro players do very well is leak ticks, and they can be really hard to stop in the companion, because this player here, if they haven't fully expanded out and stopping everything, it will just hit us, and ticks come super early on. I've also got a bomber hit us, T1 bomber at 3 minutes 30. Almost took out a lot, took out a little bit I think. Could have been much worse. So thank you Air for protecting us. So despite some early game harassment, I've done my usual, which is to get the energy storage up, get 3 of these construction turrets up in this position so I can get all these mexes. Also, we've got 1 sent right away on wind turbines. If you don't do this, you will run out of energy sooner or later, so that's very important. After the wind has stabilised a little bit, we can send the commander through. I often don't get to send the commander through till about 4-5 minutes. Now, a lot of people I've noticed the meta is to get up there really early with lasers, but I wouldn't say really early, semi-early, because you've still got to take all the mexes and that, right? And as good as the commander is on the front line, especially against T1 units, it's only in one place at one time, whereas I'd rather perhaps get these more flexible units up just that little bit quicker, particularly with early game aggression in higher OS lobbies. We see it here already, just trying to get that run by. The commander's all the way over here. It's no miracle unit and takes some time to get the laser defences up. And let's face it, if the enemy's got a heap of blitzers, they'll just walk past your laser defences. Fortunately, it is stopped. Now, something I've done which is different is try and get early Januses out. I've now got the ratio of 2 Whistlers to 1 Janus, but I think in the early times, I try and get actually more Januses out. At about 5 minutes 20, I'm putting this on wait, this vehicle plan, just to save up for the T2 for eco. Also, we're doing a little bit of T1 eco work at the same time to try and maximise our metal production in this very metal starved spot. So I've got a paltry 2 laser turrets, but quite enough, and I've got this little force I'm quite proud of blitzers, missile trucks and Januses, about 2 of each. We can just see even 1 missile truck, how annoying it is. And the pressure it puts on. So we're already getting some blitzers. This is why I've got my own blitzers. Despite getting massively blown up, I don't know why they just insta-exploded, but there you go. Ah, the enemy commander was here. I see. But Mons took a pretty hard Janus hit and has to retreat. So the commander's like 1 big hit away from blowing up. Pay sometimes to be a little bit more aggressive towards the commander, because they are actually quite vulnerable to, let's say, Janus fire. So my method here, after I've seen better players than me do this, is to just poke forward with only 2 or 3 Janus, back them up with a couple of missile trucks and bring them back for repairs, then send them out once more on a little bout. I've been slowly sending metal through to Fennis, so we finally paid about the 7-minute mark, despite getting this T1 economy up as well. So here we go, I've come forward now, I've come forward a little bit too much. It's just a bit of a mess. But we still managed to retreat without too many casualties. I think they came off worse. That was a nice timing, like all of our teammates went forward at once, and that's critical, that sort of teamwork. Funnily enough, it's never communicated, but I guess sometimes the tempo of the pushes you'd be communicating every half a minute. Might be the worst idea to actually word up your fellow frontliner here and say, hey, can we push when I say go? And also the canyon as well. So I'm reclaiming as we basically have pushed forward. So these Janus are able to easily overcome Rocketeers. just in that alpha hit. Despite that, I'm being a little bit conservative. I think I see these guys hitting me from the side. So Malem, so we're sort of, 2v1 here, if not 3v1. With a little bit of help, of course, from our frontliner, Montezuma. While we're waiting for this T2 constructor to wander over to us, we're just all hands on deck of the vehicle plant. Still going with the 1 Janus to 2 Whistler trucks. It probably pays to have some pincers or stouts or something to deal with T1. We're not seeing too much of that. Our player here has been a little bit AFK, unfortunately, on the front line. Look, it's just unfortunate. You can't spend every waking moment on the front line. You need to go back to base. That's why it has to be done really quickly. Flicking back every sort of 5 seconds. Longer than that, and you can get quite the ambush on you. Yeah, so we're going a little bit harder on these missile bots now, particularly with the assistance of the ticks. We're trying to maximise that. And really we're able to just simply destroy this army, despite not having a very big army ourselves. It's like 4 Januses, 8 missile trucks, it's 2,000 metal worth of army. We've just obliterated their rock tier army, no time at all, of course with the help of the tick spam. So much so, Malem's having to come across and sort of come after my commander actually. Fortunately I moved the commander out of the way. I think he's going to catch our units here. There you go. Lem's a very good player though, and we're giving it back to him. Always going a lot with the Wolverines and sort of manual, I guess, targeting. But it's still missing the vast majority of the time. Thanks to Lem's work, we're down a number of units, but still enough to be very effective against this paltry force. The idea is you've been successful in this position here, is when you get to reclaim a lot of metal, and we are reclaiming, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, something like that. It's been very successful. It has cost our commander a good deal of health though. As soon as we've healed up, it's time for another foray. I've come up with this composition, I guess, after many lost battles and trying to manage too many units. We see Mlem doing something different and going for maximum range. It's not infallible, this combination, by any means, and we're going to see where it falls apart now. Now, before we go any further, a little bit of a mistake from me to not identify just the number of forces. I think I'm going to identify it maybe just a little bit too late here. All of a sudden, tanks coming in, and we see a sort of, I guess, everyone. There's anti-canyon, there's front eco, there's front line. So we're sort of in a 3v1 situation where they've saved up these forces and are now hitting us with them. So for example, there's 15 tanks here, and that goes down to 4. So although obviously we blew up a lot ourselves, at least it's reduced their number quite a bit, and they can't salvage that. I think they're going to be able to salvage our commander though, unfortunately. And I will point to the overall battle picture here, and it's something as a better player you might have to recognise, because we get stuck into these sort of tactical back and forths, and then we just get hit by very fast stouts or something like that, a whole heap of them, and just get wiped out, right? So in order to not have that happen, sometimes you've got to look at the pressure. Set me is not doing any pressure at all, basically. There was just this tiny back and forth. But really, we've seen no real units, just a very defensive position. Montezuma is all the way back here. And so essentially, I'm opening myself up to the whole enemy. And also, even over here, right, there's no damage being done. Like lithium, red. Actually, Setme's taken on a lot, but I guess from a more defensive standpoint, perhaps. But essentially, our front line is getting all the action. And so, in that position, you might want to be a little bit more defensive than I was doing. But still, even though I've said overrun and I'm preparing everyone for it, we have managed to salvage a few units importantly, and we did have the rallying units. I just sort of think this force is maybe going to struggle, but it's better than nothing, and the Janus always has an outweighed effect. Will you fire, please? This Janus is so slow firing sometimes. Finally fires at one thing. There you go, huh? Yeah, priority unit for sure. I'm quite happy in this, because this lobby is not a low-ranked lobby, and we've been more than able to hold ourselves against 3 other players, just with this army composition. And it's taken really a whole heap of stouts attacking all of a sudden to wipe us out. Always a good idea to keep an eye on the mini-map too. Having a radar might have actually saved us too. So there's a couple of things we could have done, I see that now. And something that our canyons do in Set Me is, I guess, putting a little bit of pressure on with the brutes, which is good, but just well outnumbered. But still attacking into it, and the ticks as well, applying a little bit of pressure, actually very effectively, just because how fast they are. Something to keep in mind, against overwhelming odds perhaps, a tick swarm is okay. And there's us trying to, I suppose, support the tick swarm. We've made the opposing player run away, which is good. Unfortunately, we have something rather big firing at us. These artillery pieces. So we're battling against T2 here. We're a little bit outclassed. Look how far I can fire. Oh my god. Scary. But fortunately, agitators even outrange the T2 artillery. It is a common sort of belief that agitators and the like, they're obsolete by T2, but we can see clearly here they actually fend off T2 quite nicely. And I'd say till late T2, then they're definitely obsolete. We're coming in to attack here and sort of support the force. We get pretty much blown up at this stage, but we've spent all our forces. So we're looking at about 16 minutes 50 here. Been a very active front line. Lots of metal reclaimed while I was alive. And we see here in the damage, we're, along with Montezuma, handling all the workload. But the thing is, we haven't had all these metal extractors to support us. So we've been able to do it with a really efficient force in a high OS lobby, and that's just from experience, guys, of what being able to do. And they haven't been micro perfectly or anything like that, but the damage efficiency is good. So I'm happy with that composition. I recommend it, and I think it's the way to go. The efficiency of the unit's so much better than bots. I would not be able to do what I just done then with bots. And because we've reclaimed some metal and in general haven't overproduced units too much, although certainly we've produced plenty, we're now producing at the 17-minute mark starlights. In fact, we have our first starlight coming up to the line at about the 17-minute mark. Also with a shredder anti-air. The only thing I'm leaning a little bit too optimistic about is this fusion reactor. I'm hoping to get it up as soon as possible, so I asked for some energy just to get this starlight firing. One of the more annoying places you can put your starlight is in the canyon here and have it poke out and come in from different directions and sort of ambush the enemy. Yeah, it's very hungry on the energy. I have to turn around now. Now we actually see air attacking us here. Good thing I got that anti-air up there. Move the bombers just out of the range. Very smart. So I took down 5 fighters. That's not bad, and might have helped minimise the casualties here, although some of their base was damaged, unfortunately. Some of our allies' base. We also see a run by at this stage, and my starlight's been able to take down a couple of tanks due to the ridiculous range. Fortunately, we've got some forces back here. There's a very porous front line here. There we go. Now we start to see, taking down these T2 artillery, just how ridiculous even a couple of starlights are. Mons recognises the threat though and gets away. Unfortunately, I'm just a little bit too aggressive here. I don't expect Mons to turn around. Maybe I expect these forces to come up a bit quicker than they do. And unfortunately with starlights, when you're in this position, you've just got to fight it out. If I turn around here, I die anyway. So yeah, we've just got to hopefully be as effective as we can. So that wasn't any sort of starlight masterclass. I'm just showing you though how cool they are. And of course this is a bit weird that the front line's crumpled so much. So usually you've got other units to back you up a little bit better than that. It's why I also build these Jaguars. Not that that necessarily would have turned anything around because I didn't have enough forces, but helps us fend off the spam quite nicely. Now the thing about Jaguars is they are a little bit niche. They haven't really got tank. Let's compare to a welder, but they're actually quite high range. So if we can be in a position where we're not getting overwhelmed, then the Jaguars acquit themselves quite nicely as a utility unit and perfectly complement the Starlight's weakness. The Starlights can actually take a shot though. The problem with the Starlight is actually grouping it up, which I sort of am doing here. So when one blows up, the other blows up. We've got a bit bigger force now. Because we lost those Starlights, unfortunately, this is going to be tough. Now this is where we've got to really try and snipe them before they snipe us and attack ground wherever we see those lasers coming from. But we've been able to win this fight basically, despite a very large force. We've been able to take that on quite successfully. That pretty much concludes it from our side because we've rocked on with the scaling here. Everything's going to plan and yeah, looking really good. If we go over to the other canyon, you'll notice it's dead at the moment because we have our top player being the anti-canyon, and basically this side hasn't taken any pressure. And this is what Iron Storm actually says, well, because you didn't pressure these players here, then of course they've just scaled and attacked, and even with T3, right? So it's unstoppable essentially, and that's sometimes by playing your part on the front line and applying a lot of pressure. Even if you're semi getting your ass kicked, as long as you're doing a lot, then that might alleviate other parts of the front line to really scale up and then just blow through the opposition, which is what has happened here. So yeah, sometimes it's not glamorous to play front in that respect. You're just sort of getting beaten up, but it does allow your other teammates to bring the excellence. Now, we're getting to the situation now, of course, despite having no economy, right, we've got no mexes really, we've got to be front line, and then we've also got to sort of come through with something special. And so I hope this build shows that you can bring Starlights to the table fairly early, you can have a T1 effective army fairly early, and you can also sort of scale. Although we aren't scaling to the level we could if we were greedy, this is a higher OS lobby, and it's always better to sort of have a minimal army that's able to pressure the enemy forces. That's much more better for your whole team than just sort of sit back and scaling all the time. There you go, guys. I enjoyed watching this replay because I guess the T1 stage I've been struggling with, from thugs to rocket bots to basically wolverines to all these sort of units which can be very convoluted sometimes. You've got to dance them around. It seems like they're do-nothing armies where you're just going back and forth and sort of trading with the enemy, where you can see the Whistlers and Janus can actually overrun the enemy effectively, and then you can pick up on that metal scrap, and that's the whole point of you being there. Otherwise, why even bring the commander up? Just, you know, explode him in the base, you know, get that metal. The commander is there as the ultimate metal scraper-upper, and that's why we want him out the front at that sort of 4 or 5 minute stage to hopefully be pressuring with the Janus and Whistler and bringing some resources back to the home base. Thanks for watching this short video. Hopefully you picked up a thing or two about Bar. It can be an awfully complicated game, and I hope these little guides make it a bit easier, because I was just a nooblet myself 3 months back and totally confused, but I got addicted within a week and I've really enjoyed Bar since. So I hope these guys illuminate my learnings and you guys can pick up a thing or two as well. See you next video.